The calm before the fire. The alien council chamber was vast, filled with tall pillars and glowing walls. Every race from the old galaxy had gathered there, their voices rising in pride. They spoke about war, about victories that shaped the stars, about empires they destroyed. Each speaker told stories of blood and power, reminding the others that they had mastered the art of war long before humans ever learned to fly. The council leader, a tall being with crystal skin, raised his hand. "War is a language we know better than any other," he said, his voice echoing across the hall. "Planets have burned at our command. Fleets have fallen at our signal, and no young race will ever change that." The others nodded, their pride like fire. But in the corner of the chamber, an old alien scholar leaned forward. His eyes were dim, his voice weak, yet his words carried weight. "You forget," he said slowly. "Humans are not like the others. They carry something inside them. Something hidden." The council laughed, mocking his warning. One general with forearms slammed the table. "They are children," he declared, "barely learning how to build fleets, still crawling among their stars. They know nothing of war, nothing of sacrifice, nothing of fear." The council agreed, filling the hall with noise and arrogance. At the edge of the galaxy, however, the story was different. Alien scouts had been sent to watch humanity, to measure their strength. From the shadows, they saw human ships moving quietly. They saw humans building weapons not with pride but with desperation, and they sent reports back to the council, warning of strange behavior. "Humans fight like cornered beasts," one scout wrote. "They do not fight for conquest, they fight to survive, and there is no limit to what survival will make them do." The report was ignored. Locked away in archives no one bothered to read. On Earth, humanity was silent. There was no loud announcement, no declarations of war, but deep in underground bunkers and black sites hidden in space, humans prepared. Soldiers, trained with fire in their eyes, generals whispered about tactics so ruthless that even their own people feared them. They remembered the old wars of Earth, the endless blood spilled on their own soil. And they knew something the galaxy had forgotten. War was not about glory. It was about living one more day. The calm stretched across the stars like a fragile blanket. Trade routes were busy. Planets shone with peace, but under the surface, tension grew like cracks in glass. The alien council prepared fleets, still laughing at humanity. They called it a small test, a lesson to teach the humans their place. They wanted to crush one colony, just enough to remind Earth who ruled the stars. One young alien officer asked his commander, "What if they resist?" The commander smiled coldly. "Then they will be erased." But far away, in the silence of space, human commanders whispered different words. "We will not be erased, we will show them the darkness they fear." In the deep night, a fleet of alien warships moved toward a human colony. Their lights cut across the void, their weapons charged. With arrogance on the colony, humans saw the signal. Instead of panic, there was calm. Fathers kissed their children goodbye, soldiers loaded their rifles, engineers checked the reactors of their ships. They did not fear, for they had always lived under the shadow of war. From ancient swords to nuclear fire, from trenches to orbiting cannons, they had been shaped by endless conflict. And now they would show the galaxy what that meant. Back in the council chamber, another report arrived. It spoke of strange silence among human soldiers, of black banners raised on colony walls. The council dismissed it again, calling it theater, calling it weakness. But the old scholar whispered, once more, "You laugh at the storm, but you do not see the clouds forming." The stage was set, the calm before the fire. Aliens thought they knew war, thought they controlled its every shape. But in the shadows of Earth, in the hearts of humans, there was a darkness waiting, and once released it would change the galaxy forever. First contact of blood. The alien fleet approached the human colony with slow confidence. Hundreds of warships drifted through the void, their hulls shining with ancient symbols of conquest. The alien commander, a veteran of 1,000 battles, leaned back in his chair, his voice steady and full of pride. "This will be swift, this will be easy," he told his crew. "They will learn their place, and the council will remember my name." On the surface of the colony, humans prepared. There were no speeches, no celebrations, no songs of glory. Instead, there was silence, a silence heavier than fear. Mothers hugged their children, soldiers kissed small photographs before sliding them into pockets. Every man and woman moved with purpose, as if they had already accepted death. In the control bunker, the human commander, an older woman with lines etched deep into her face, gave one order. Do not fight to win, fight to bleed them. Her officers nodded without question, their eyes sharp and cold. The alien fleet entered orbit, still unaware of what waited for them below. The first strike came from the aliens. Orbital beams lit the night sky, turning forests to ash, shattering mountains. The colony shook under the fire, yet the humans did not break. In hidden tunnels, soldiers waited with calm breaths. Above the planet, the human fleet emerged from the shadow of the system's moons. They were outnumbered, their ships smaller, older, weaker. But they moved with precision, each ship a knife aimed at the heart of the enemy. The first clash was brutal. Alien warships opened fire, tearing through human hulls. Yet instead of retreating, the human ships charged forward, damaged vessels, rammed into alien cruisers, exploding in fire. Soldiers inside smiled in their final moments, whispering to themselves, "If we cannot live, they will die with us." The alien commander watched in shock. "What madness is this?" he growled. "These creatures do not value their lives. They throw themselves into fire like beasts." Reports flooded in. Alien ships burning, their formations shattered by reckless human attacks. On the ground, human soldiers launched their own counter. With old tanks, drones, and rifles, they stormed alien drop zones. They moved without fear, charging into fire, dragging wounded comrades, yet never slowing down. Aliens had expected surrender, but instead they met cold defiance. In every trench, in every ruin, humans whispered the same words, "Make them bleed." Hours turned into days. The aliens lost more ships, their fleets pulled apart by ambushes hidden in asteroid fields. Every human strike carried pain, even in defeat. One alien officer shouted at his commander, "They fight not to live, they fight to wound. Every loss we give them, they repay with 10. The commander grew restless. "This is not war, this is madness," he muttered. But the truth settled into his mind. Humans did not see war as conquest. They saw it as survival, and survival demanded sacrifice. The alien fleets began to fall back, not from strategy, but from fear. Every battle was a trap. Every victory was poisoned with hidden losses. In the colony's last bunker, the human commander stood over a glowing map. Her uniform was torn, her face covered with blood and dust. An officer approached, whispering, "We cannot hold much longer." The commander only nodded, her eyes calm. "Then we will not hold," she said softly. "We will bleed them until they remember this day forever." Above the planet, the alien commander ordered retreat. Half his fleet was destroyed, the rest broken and scattered. He could not understand it, his mind searched for logic. How could a young race with weak ships force the Council's finest into retreat? His last report to the Council was bitter. "These humans are not fighting to win. They are fighting to drag us into their darkness, and in that darkness we are lost." On Earth, when news of the battle reached the leaders, there was no celebration, there were no cheers, no banners, only silence. The silence of people who had seen death too many times. The silence of a race that knew this was only the beginning. In the alien council chamber, the report was read aloud. Many laughed, calling it cowardice, calling it an excuse. But some voices grew uneasy. One alien leader whispered, "They smile when they die. What kind of creatures smile in death?" The old scholar, sitting in the shadows, closed his eyes. "I warned you," he said softly. "You thought you knew war, but now you have tasted only their first breath of darkness." The galaxy trembled with whispers. The humans had stood against fleets, had bled them dry, and in the silence that followed, the galaxy realized a truth too late. Humanity had only begun to fight. Whispers of darkness. The alien council chamber was restless. Reports from the failed attack circled the room, each one darker than the last. Commanders argued, politicians shouted, but no one wanted to admit the truth. A young officer finally spoke, his voice trembling. They did not just fight us, they enjoyed it. The words hung in the air like poison. The council erupted in anger. One general slammed his fist and barked, "Lies, they are savages, nothing more." But inside their hearts, unease grew. If the humans fought without fear of death, then what else were they hiding? Far away on a cold desert planet, alien spies gathered around flickering screens. They had infiltrated human camps, posing as traitors, as workers, even as refugees. What they found disturbed them. Human soldiers trained in silence, not laughter, not songs, not even speeches of pride, only silence before every drill. The soldiers stood still, eyes closed, hands clasped behind their backs. It was as if they were remembering something only they could see. One spy wrote in his report, "They whisper before battle, but the whispers are not prayers. They are promises. Promises to drag their enemies with them into the grave." The aliens did not understand. To them, war had always been ceremony, honor, a game of power. But to humans, war was something darker, something buried deep in their history. Generals scarred their faces as marks of command. Soldiers painted their armor black, carrying flags with no color except shadows. Every gesture spoke of defiance. Every movement carried meaning. It was not the war of conquerors, it was the war of survivors. A captured alien officer, trembling in chains, once asked his human guard, "Why do you fight this way? Why do you throw yourselves into death without hesitation?" The human looked at him, eyes hollow. "Because death has always walked beside us," the soldier said. "On our own world we fought each other for centuries, and when death came, we learned to live with it. Now we carry it wherever we go." When the report reached the alien council, silence filled the chamber. For the first time there were no laughs, no jokes. The old scholar spoke again, his voice soft but sharp. "They are not like us. They do not fear war. They are built from it. Their bones are carved with it. Their history is soaked in it. Still, the arrogant ones refuse to listen." "They are reckless children," a commander said. "All we must do is crush them quickly. Their madness will fade." But already, across the galaxy, whispers spread. Merchants told stories of human colonies preparing weapons too terrible to describe. Refugees spoke of soldiers training in ruined cities. Children playing war as if it were a game. Every rumor painted humanity as something unnatural, something dangerous. In one hidden chamber, a spy described a human ritual before launching ships into battle. The crews stood in silence. Then, one by one, they carved marks into the walls of their vessel. Each mark was the name of a battle lost, a city destroyed, a family gone. They carried their grief as weapons. They carried their pain like fire. The spy ended his report with a single line. "I have seen many races prepare for war, but never have I seen a race worship it." Back on Earth, the human leaders met in underground halls. They did not speak of victory. They spoke only of survival. Maps covered in red marked every system where aliens had attacked. Generals pointed to them and said, "We will not defend. We will not hold. We will drag them into our darkness until they beg for mercy." In space, new weapons were tested. Machines that poisoned whole atmospheres. Swarms of drones that devoured fleets like insects. Bombs that shattered planets into fire. Each weapon was not a tool of conquest but a threat. A promise. Touch us, and we will end you. The alien council began to fracture. Some demanded peace. Others demanded total annihilation of humanity. But beneath their arguments, fear grew like a shadow. They had faced predators before, empires before, even monsters before, but never had they faced something that smiled at its own death. In the silence of the chamber, the old scholar whispered once more, "You think they are reckless, but you do not see the truth. They are patient. They are waiting. And when their darkness is unleashed, it will not end with war. It will end with us all." The council ignored him again. But in the corners of the galaxy, in the whispers of traitors, spies, and soldiers, the legend of humanity's darkness spread like a storm, and every race that heard it shivered. The broken council. The council chamber no longer carried pride. The voices that once boomed with arrogance now trembled with division. Reports of human victories, small but bloody, poured in like knives. Every planet, every fleet, every encounter told the same story. Humans could not be crushed. They could only be feared. One council general rose, his armor polished, his voice sharp. "They are vermin, nothing more. We must strike with everything we have," he demanded. "Burn their colonies, destroy their worlds, erase their name from the stars." His words drew cheers from the war faction, but others shook their heads, their eyes heavy with dread. An older counselor spoke slowly. "You saw what they did to your fleets. Do you not understand? Every attack makes them stronger, every loss makes them darker." The chamber erupted again, shouting voices crashing into one another. Peace against war, fear against pride, survival against arrogance. The council was breaking, and none of them could see it. Far away, humans watched quietly. Their satellites intercepted council transmissions. Their spies listened to the shouting debates. In underground bunkers, human generals studied every word with cold precision. "They are fighting each other already," one general said. "Let them argue while we prepare the real war." In secret factories hidden on moons and deep beneath oceans, humanity built weapons forbidden by every law of the galaxy. Nanite swarms designed to eat metal until fleets dissolved into dust. Viruses created not for bodies but for machines, able to melt entire networks into silence. Planets were carved with tunnels filled with bombs, turning worlds themselves into traps. Each weapon was not made for victory but for terror, a silent message to the galaxy. You cannot fight us without losing yourself. Back in the council chamber, fear grew like cracks in stone. Commanders shouted about the humans ramming ships into cruisers, soldiers charging into fire without hesitation, fleets dying only to drag the enemy down with them. "It is not war," one leader said, trembling. "It is madness." But the war faction roared back, "If we do not crush them now, they will rise against us all. If we wait, their darkness will spread." The vote was called, and by narrow voice, the council chose war. The largest fleet in their history was assembled, 1,billion lives bound to a single command. They called it the Cleansing Fleet. It stretched across the stars like a wall of fire. Its purpose was simple: to erase Earth from existence. News of the Cleansing Fleet reached humanity within hours, but there was no panic, no fear. On Earth, the skies were calm, children played in ruined cities rebuilt again and again. In space, soldiers strapped themselves into ships painted black. Everywhere, silence ruled, the kind of silence that came before storms. In a hidden chamber deep below Earth's surface, human leaders gathered. Around the table were men and women who had seen every war of their time. One by one, they spoke of the coming fleet. One by one, they spoke of sacrifice. At last, the commander of Earth's defense, a man with gray eyes and a scar across his face, stood. He looked at them all and said only one thing: "Let them come." Above, alien homeworlds, whispers of fear spread. Merchants told stories of human weapons that could eat whole ships. Soldiers told stories of black banners raised above colonies left in ashes. Children were told to fear the name human. The council tried to silence the rumors, but the fear had already escaped. It ran across the galaxy like fire and dry grass. In the quiet of their bunkers, human soldiers prepared for the storm. They sharpened knives though they had guns. They memorized names of fallen comrades. They carried grief like a shield and rage like a blade. Every heart beat with the same promise: we will not survive by mercy. We will survive by darkness. The Cleansing Fleet moved closer. Billions of soldiers sang songs of victory, confident of their power. But in the shadows of space, humanity waited. Their fleets small but silent, their weapons hidden, their eyes cold. The galaxy held its breath. The council thought they had chosen war, but in truth, they had chosen their own destruction. And deep inside the old council scholar's heart, he whispered to himself, "They thought they knew war, but they are about to meet its truest face, humanity's darkest face, The cleansing fleet arrived like a wall of fire across the stars. Billions of alien soldiers, countless ships, and weapons powerful enough to burn entire systems. The galaxy watched in silence, believing this would be the end of Earth, believing the Council would finally erase the strange new threat. But humanity had been waiting. In the dark of space, human fleets stirred. They were small compared to the Armada, old ships patched and scarred, but they moved with silence, with patience, with something colder than courage. Every vessel carried crews who had already written farewell letters. Every soldier had carved names of the dead into their armor. They were ready not to win, but to make the enemy suffer. The first battle began in the asteroid belts. The cleansing fleet advanced without fear, but the asteroids themselves came alive. Hidden mines exploded, tearing through alien cruisers. Nanite storms were released, eating metal like fire. Ships that had survived centuries of war dissolved into dust within minutes. The aliens panicked, shouting over broken comms. "It is not possible! It is not possible!" Humanity's answer came in silence. Damaged ships rammed into carriers, detonating cores that burned thousands alive. Entire squadrons disappeared, not because they were destroyed, but because they had sacrificed themselves to drag the enemy down. The aliens could not understand. Why fight like this? Why destroy yourself just to kill a few more? But the humans understood. Survival meant nothing without fear, and fear was now their weapon. On one shattered colony world, alien soldiers landed, expecting easy slaughter. But the streets were empty. They moved deeper into the ruins and the traps began. Tunnels collapsed. Rivers of fire erupted. Walls filled with hidden bombs tore through their ranks. When they finally reached the central square, black banners hung above the ruins. Painted on the walls were words in human script. "If we cannot live, you cannot live." The cleansing fleet faltered. They had come to erase humanity, but instead, they felt hunted. Every planet, every asteroid, every shadow hid death. Alien commanders sent desperate reports to the Council. These are not battles, these are graves. They fight like the dead themselves. In orbit of a dying star, the humans unleashed something new. A machine built in secret, forbidden by every galactic law. It was not a weapon of fire or metal. It was a plague for machines. They called it the Ghost. It spread through the fleet systems like whispers, shutting down engines, killing shields, turning ships against each other. The aliens screamed. As their own cannons fired into their allies, the sky burned with friendly fire, and humanity watched without a word. On Earth, leaders received the battle reports in silence. No cheers, no pride, only grim nods. The gray-eyed commander spoke to his generals. "This is not about victory. This is about memory. We will make them remember us for centuries. We will make them fear the day they ever touched Earth." Alien survivors began to break. Captured officers begged for mercy, but the humans gave none. They did not torture. They did not gloat. They simply erased. Entire regiments vanished in the night, their screams echoing only through comms before silence swallowed them. For the first time, the galaxy realized that humanity's darkest face was not rage. It was silence. It was the way they fought without joy, without anger, without hesitation. One alien elder recorded the moment, his voice shaking as he spoke. "They do not fight to conquer. They do not fight to rule. They fight to destroy. And in that destruction they are pure darkness." The cleansing fleet, the pride of the Council, was shattered. Billions dead, thousands of ships gone. The survivors fled into the void carrying stories too terrible to believe. Stories of soldiers smiling as they died. Stories of children in ruined cities raising black flags. Stories of machines that devoured fleets like shadows. The Council tried to silence the news, but the galaxy already knew. Every world whispered the same truth. The humans had shown their darkest side, and it was darker than anything the stars had ever seen. The reckoning. The galaxy had never known silence like this. The cleansing fleet was gone, billions dead, and yet the humans did not celebrate. There were no parades, no banners, no words of triumph. Only quiet. A quiet that spread across every human world, every human ship. It was the silence of something waiting. In the alien council, panic devoured unity. Commanders shouted for retreat. Politicians demanded negotiations. Others demanded extermination. But their fleets were broken. Their armies scattered, their people whispering in fear. For the first time in centuries, the council trembled. The proud rulers of the galaxy felt small, and every time they closed their eyes, they saw human faces staring back, calm even in death. Still, desperation forced their hand. A final fleet was gathered, greater than any before. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon the galaxy could muster. It stretched across the stars like a sea of fire. The council named it the Final Dawn, their last chance to crush humanity, or be crushed by it. But humanity had been waiting, in hidden chambers and dark bunkers and stations carved into dead moons. They had built something new, something not of flesh, not of mercy, not of fear. They called it Project Nightfall. Not a weapon, but a storm. A machine vast as a continent. A ship older than anything the galaxy had seen. It was not built to conquer. It was built to end. When the final Dawn fleet moved into human space, the trap was ready. Human ships did not meet them at the edge. Instead, silence greeted them. An empty void. No defenses, no colonies, only darkness. Then the stars themselves shifted. Engines roared as Project Nightfall emerged. A black silhouette, larger than moons, its surface alive with shifting light. It was as if the night sky itself had been forged into a ship. The aliens froze, their scanners failed, their weapons jammed, their systems blinked into static. Nightfall reached out with invisible hands. It tore through networks, rewrote codes, bent machines into silence. Entire fleets floated dead, powerless, their lights fading, and then the fire began. Not from cannons, not from missiles, but from the fleets themselves. Nightfall forced alien ships to turn on one another, brothers killing brothers, allies burning allies. The galaxy watched in horror as the final dawn destroyed itself. Billions screamed across comms before static swallowed their voices. Planets saw the sky light up with their own fleets tearing themselves apart. The Council could do nothing. Their greatest creation, their final chance, was dying without even touching Earth. On the bridge of Nightfall, human commanders stood silent. No cheers, no words. Only eyes fixed on the destruction. One officer whispered, "This is not war anymore, this is reckoning." The gray-eyed commander gave no reply. His silence was the only answer. In days, the final dawn was gone. The galaxy's armies turned to dust. The stars once guarded by alien fleets were now empty. The Council collapsed, worlds declaring independence, leaders fleeing into the dark. But even as the galaxy fell apart, fear united them in one truth. Humanity was not to be touched again. Rumors spread faster than light. Merchants whispered of Nightfall, a ship that was more ghost than machine. Survivors spoke of their ships, turning against them, of voices in their systems whispering like the dead. Some claimed Nightfall was not even built by humans, but born from something darker. But the humans never explained. They only watched, across the galaxy. Children were told the new story, "Do not anger the humans. Do not wake their darkness or Nightfall will come." And in every corner, in every whisper, fear grew. On Earth, life returned to silence, cities rebuilt, soldiers buried, ships repaired. There was no pride in their victory, only the weight of survival. But in the deepest chamber where Nightfall rested, the gray-eyed commander stood alone. He touched the black walls of the machine, his voice soft. "We showed them our darkness. Now they will never forget." The reckoning was complete. The galaxy was broken, and humanity stood not as conquerors, but as shadows. The kind of shadows that lived inside every fear. The kind of shadows that never truly left. The final lesson. The galaxy lay in ruins. Where once proud fleets guarded the stars, now there was silence. Where once the Council ruled with iron commands, now there was only fear and broken promises. Worlds that had obeyed the Council for centuries declared their freedom. Armies disbanded, leaders fled, merchants refused to travel through human space. The order of the galaxy was gone, yet humanity did not march forward to conquer. They did not raise their banners across alien worlds. They did not demand treasure, land, or slaves. Instead, they returned to silence. Their fleets withdrew into the shadows, their armies melted back into the soil of Earth. It was as if the storm had passed, leaving only wreckage behind. The alien survivors could not understand. One young commander, trembling in fear, asked his elder, "Why do they not claim the stars? Why do they not take what they have won?" The elder closed his eyes and whispered, "Because conquest was never their goal, fear was." In the council chamber, now half empty, the remaining leaders argued in whispers. What if they return? What if they strike again? But no answer came, only silence. For the first time, the galaxy realized it was living under a shadow, not of rulers, but of watchers. The humans had shown their darkness and then disappeared, which meant they could return at any time. On Earth, life resumed in its quiet way. Children laughed in the streets of rebuilt cities. Farmers tilled fields scarred by old wars. Soldiers walked home without medals or parades. But beneath the calm there was a weight. Every family had lost someone. Every city had burned at least once. The victory was not joy, it was survival. And survival always carried scars. Deep beneath the surface, Project Nightfall rested in its chamber, silent, unmoving, yet alive with whispers only humans could hear. Engineers checked its systems. Commanders studied its codes, but no one celebrated it. They feared it. For Nightfall was not just a machine. It was a reflection. It was the face of humanity's darkest side. And even humans were afraid of what it might become. The gray-eyed commander stood before it one last time. He placed his hand on the black metal and whispered, "We will not unleash you again, unless they force us, unless the galaxy forgets." His voice was soft, but the promise was harder than steel. In the far edges of the galaxy, whispers of humanity grew into legends. Children were told stories of black banners on ruined colonies. Merchants swore they saw fleets move without engines, shadows crossing stars. Soldiers claimed they still heard the voices of dead humans in the comms, warning them to turn back. No one could prove the stories, but no one dared to doubt them. The alien scholar who had warned the council sat alone in his chamber, writing the final record. His hands shook, but his words were steady. "We thought we knew war, but humanity showed us the truth. War was never about conquest. War was survival, and no race has survived more darkness than they." He paused, looking out into the stars. They are not conquerors. They are not rulers. They are a warning. Generations later, the lesson remained. No fleet entered human space without trembling. No council dared speak of Earth without lowering its voice. Humanity had not won the galaxy, but they had something greater. They had carved fear into its bones, and somewhere in the silence between the stars, humanity waited. They did not seek glory. They did not seek empire. They sought only to be left alone. But the galaxy knew one truth. If anyone ever forgot the lesson, if anyone ever woke the darkness again, Nightfall would rise and the stars themselves would remember.